So, a while back, I made a video analyzing the content of this reactionary YouTuber named Moon, who makes some of the worst video essays I see on this website. These video essays tackle really interesting societal issues, like the abuse of big corporations, like Facebook or TikTok or whatever, but instead of attributing the horrible behavior of these platforms to the really basic answer, which is obviously the profit motive, and then maybe working off of there and coming up with some more insights, what Moon does is he just blames it all on men being weak and like the downfall of Western civilization or something, and like men being weak and women being prostitutes. It doesn't make any sense. He points at real issues, real problems that actually exist, and then blames this weird, like, giant agenda against men on it. And every Moon video, I've come to realize in the months since I put that initial video out, they're all the same. This guy doesn't have anything to say except men are getting really weak, and that's why Facebook is abusive and bad and engages in shitty business practices, because there's this big plot against strong men, and we live in this horrible, shit-ridden dystopia that's so fucking awful, and everything is awful, and I just fucking hate it.
Once Zuckerberg's metaverse plan comes to fruition, the amount of data they will access will be nearly infinite. The psychological frameworks to addict you to their platforms will become ever more strong. They will have the resources of 3 billion people under their thumbs.
Obviously, that's just an insanely reactionary stance to take, but Moon has done something right, because as of this video, he has over 800,000 subscribers. All his videos get millions of views, and obviously they appeal to an algorithm that doesn't place emphasis on like really well-produced content that gives a shit, and they just put it on this fucking Gorbo that's just like, yeah, men need more testosterone, too many beta males, too many freaking weak-ass cucks around here, not enough of those strong, big Fred Flintstone men, you know what I'm saying? So when I saw that Moon, my favorite YouTuber, had made a video analyzing one of my favorite movies, Fight Club, I knew this was going to be interesting.
With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy.
High estrogen causes men to take on feminine traits. So we look for the next item, the next man, with a big leather jacket, shave, and unlimited confidence.
Fight Club is an excellent movie, and right off the bat, I'll admit that any girl who says that Fight Club is a red flag in some relationship, like if her boyfriend likes Fight Club and she sees that as some kind of red flag, that's as annoying as any guy who finds Tyler Durden to be an admirable character. Fight Club is not a red flag. Liking Fight Club is not a red flag. Moreover, Fight Club is not just a movie for men. Everyone should watch Fight Club. It's a good example of a well-made movie that's directed well and well-written, because Chuck Palahniuk is a great novelist, and his ideas really translate well to film. I think the problem with Fight Club is that so often it's marketed and branded as just being a story about masculinity. That's obviously not the case, because Helena Bonham Carter's character, Marla, obviously has an interesting perspective in the film. You know, as the female character, the antithesis of the narrator and his whole perspective, who's kind of oblivious to everything that's going on, she provides an interesting contrast. But regardless of that, Fight Club is just a great film on its own, and you should watch it, whether you're a guy or a gal or non-binary or whatever the heck. It's a really great example of filmmaking. You can learn a lot from it. You can learn about competent editing. You can learn about how to put together a montage correctly. You can learn about narration and voiceover. There's so much technique to it, and that's the kind of thing that a director like David Fincher will infuse his movies with. Obviously, though, I can't deny that Fight Club has been appropriated and weirdly obsessed over by a lot of chauvinists and incels and the other modern scum that infest today's society and are the actual problem with modern men. The two movies that I would compare Fight Club most readily to are Taxi Driver and Joker. And much like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, Robert De Niro's Travis Bickle, Tyler Durden is not meant to be an aspirational character, and you'd have to be really fucking stupid to watch Fight Club and think that Tyler Durden is supposed to be the cool guy who you want to be. But I guess much like with Joker and Taxi Driver, a lot of people just don't seem to be able to wrap their heads around the concept of a flawed protagonist, which is a pretty common screenwriting technique, but for whatever reason, some people just assume that whatever the protagonist of a movie does, even if they're like a bank robber or whatever, you're just supposed to take after that because they're technically the good guy, which isn't even the case all the time. You know, there's anti-heroes, there's anti-villains, there's a whole layer of complex characterization that can be explored if you're an actual screenwriter or something. But a lot of the general film-going audience doesn't really understand that, so they just think, oh, Tyler Durden, I should be Tyler Durden. I want to be Tyler Durden.
After 2 decades, men still feel so connected to this movie.
Now, obviously, Moon doesn't understand jack shit about Fight Club, mostly because he's not American, he's British, and Fight Club is a thoroughly American film. It comes from an extremely American area of expertise, and in addition to that, it's not even relevant to the modern day. It's not relevant to millennials or Zoomers. It was made about a specific period in history, that being Gen X. Gen X felt as if they didn't have a purpose because it was after the fall of the Soviet Union, mid to late 90s, and as Tyler Durden's speech in the middle of the film goes, we are the middle children of history. It's about Gen X not having a purpose. And guess what gave everyone a purpose 3 years after Fight Club came out? 9/11. 9/11 put everything into perspective and gave everyone a purpose. You know, suddenly everyone isn't just existing in this post-Soviet limbo where America is the dominant world superpower. Suddenly global conflict comes back into action and we're not feeling that millennial lull. So that's what Fight Club is actually about. Fight Club holds up extremely well. It's a very, very good movie, but it really only works for a specific point in history. And yet Moon's brand of edgy, red-pilled incel bullshit only applies to a contemporary setting because it's only in the past 10 years or so that the supposed incel movement has really gained any traction. It definitely wasn't a term back in 1999 when Fight Club was made.
Become even more depressed and isolated, and men are on the brunt of all of this.
Fight Club is a statement on the condition of Gen X, the middle children of history, people without a future, people who feel directionless, as if they have all the commodities that money can buy, but nowhere to go, and nobody to fight, and nothing to do. That wasn't the case on September 11th, 2001, because that day created purpose for people again. So it doesn't make any sense. Right off the bat, this application of Fight Club to men today, or to incels, or to like anything past 1999 doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense if you think about it for more than a second. Obviously, the main issue with this video, where Moon tries to run down everything about Fight Club, he doesn't understand that Fight Club is not even a warning movie. It's not even about, you know, oh, don't do this, oh, we're making a mistake. It's a psychological action movie that is not meant to be a realistic scenario. It's an extremely outrageous, absurd scenario that's like meta commentary. It's like a freaking surreal thing. It goes so far out of proportion, so far beyond the realm of what is possible in the real world, and goes to such absurd lengths. You'd have to be really dumb to think that it's any kind of warning or it's trying to say anything about something that could like actually happen, because obviously we don't live in the universe where Fight Club could exist, and we don't live in a universe where some guy has a completely separate personality that's able to exert this much influence. Like, sure, split personality stuff does exist, but I don't think it exists to the extent that you see it in Fight Club, where this guy goes entire months just as Tyler and doesn't even notice and just like is a completely different guy. That doesn't happen. It's a fictional scenario that's designed as an entertaining novel by Chuck Palahniuk, who's a really great writer and who obviously Moon fails to grasp the subtext of. Obviously, director David Fincher puts a lot of subtext into Fight Club as well, a lot of extremely clever subtext that you kind of have to, think about in your noggin to really process, but I don't think Moon is capable of that.
These men who are fed up with being weak losers. These men who have lost their way, who feel resentful of the world around them.
For instance, Tyler Durden is a contradictory character who makes no sense. Tyler is anti-conformity. He's against the manipulation of people by society to fit into a mold, yet he creates a cult of mindless drones who follow and do everything he says, and he robs them of their individuality. That's designed not to make any sense. It's not a plot hole. It's the statement from the filmmakers that by design, Tyler does not make sense. He is a walking contradiction. Tyler lambasts consumerism and advertising, and he hates how people want to buy things, and there's too many ads in the modern world. But at the same time, the poster is designed so that Brad Pitt is holding the bar of soap like an ad. Tyler Durden looks like a guy straight out of a fucking magazine ad. He is designed, with his clothes, and the way he walks, and his mannerisms and everything, to look like he stepped right out of an advertisement. And that is completely, entirely by design. But somehow, Moon is too dense to pick up on this, so he doesn't give it so much as a second thought. Never mind all the product placement that's in Fight Club by design to reinforce and really drive home the point that Tyler does not make any sense, that his worldview is fundamentally incompatible with a healthy society.
With this rejuvenation of the masculine and rejection of the mundane conformity, the narrator becomes hungry. He becomes hypersexual. He smokes in his office. He looks in disgust at the drones surrounding him.
I like to think of Fight Club like a really great Twilight Zone episode, in that it's about extremes. The narrator lives in a world of extremes. On one end, he has his boring office job, where he's extremely bored and experiences insomnia. On the other hand, there's Project Mayhem, where everything is balls to the wall insane, and there's no holds barred, and anything can happen. It's completely unpredictable. In the middle, you have Fight Club. Fight Club is presented as a relatively healthy means for these stupid guys to go down into the basement, engage in a little punch-it-out, and just release their tension. And that's healthy and fine at the end of the day, but it's when it escalates to Project Mayhem that the narrator realizes that there's no going back to where he came from. He can't just reset everything he's done, and that he has restructured the reality around him to such an extent that he has no way out, and the only way to get even a little bit of relief from the horrible entity that's infected his mind is to literally shoot himself and drive Tyler out. And that's just a really interesting point. That's a really interesting moral dilemma that Moon obviously completely misses.
Tyler Durden begins to change everything. His calm, stoic confidence with his fatalistic outlook makes for a perfect testosterone-laced aura. And
for whatever reason, after Moon talks about the twist where it's revealed that the narrator and Tyler are the same person, he refers to the narrator as Tyler.
Tyler was the only way he could live the life he wished for, the person he needed to pretend to be, to get where he wanted to be. Every step within this film is Tyler's journey into becoming the man he'd always repressed inside of himself. And after realizing this, Tyler goes back to the house.
Even though, obviously, the narrator's name is not Tyler, the narrator is not named. This is very basic Fight Club lore. It may as well be a rule in Fight Club. The narrator does not have a name because by design, Chuck Palahniuk and David Fincher try to de-individualize the character. The character does not have a name because affording him a name would give him too much individuality. And the whole point of Fight Club is that society de-individualizes people and creates conformity. right? That's a major theme in the film. So the narrator does not have a name, but Moon, being a complete dumbass, refers to the narrator as Tyler. But he's the narrator. He's not Tyler. Tyler is Brad Pitt. Tyler is just that specific section of the narrator's psyche. The narrator's not named Tyler.
It's now very clear what Fight Club is, what Project Mayhem is. It's a therapeutic release for Tyler to deal with his deep-seated emotional issues.
I mean, for all we know, the narrator could be named Tyler, but I don't think he is. Now, obviously, one of the points that Moon has a difficult time reconciling with is Meatloaf's character, Bob, who's introduced early into the film and then comes back in the bit where they're all in Fight Club and then comes back in the bit where he gets shot while they're vandalizing the corporate art. Very basic shit. Now, Bob is an interesting character because much like Marla, he provides a contrast to the hyper-emasculated image that Tyler Durden throws off. And he provides a contrast to the kind of nerdy everyman type character of the narrator. Bob, to put it simply, does not align with Moon's extremely limited perspective where the only thing that matters about how much of a man you are is the amount of testosterone you have. Like, that's the only measure of you being a man. And he cites this terrible video from the Try Guys where they tested themselves for testosterone or some shit.
They are the first generation of losers. I'm sure we all remember that Try Guys video.
And it's like, it gives a fuck. It's the Try Guys. Obviously, they're going to clickbait and fake their results and whatever because they work for fucking BuzzFeed. Or sorry, they used to work for BuzzFeed. Nonetheless, I really think like pulling up a Try Guys video like it's some kind of scientific study really just goes to show how artistically and ideologically bankrupt Moon's videos are because he doesn't know how to cite an actual source. Now, Bob is interesting because he's a character with high estrogen levels and he's completely deprived of testosterone. And as a result, he has man breasts. And this is an interesting perspective to follow along in a movie about guys duking it out in a big wrestling ring. Now, the really sad part, the really tragic part about Meatloaf's character Bob is that he fucking dies because he was manipulated into joining this hyper-masculine cult, and as a result, for his reckless actions, he was killed. Now, obviously, this is a point about how if you try too hard to fit in, if you try too hard to conform to the masculine ideal, you'll end up getting shot or something because you'll do something stupid and risky and you'll just die. And that's a real tragedy. Also, Bob stands as a symbol of the loss of individuality because when he dies, the narrator says, "This guy had a name. He was Bob." And then all the Project Mayhem idiots start chanting, "Yeah, in death we have a name. In death we have a name." And the narrator's like, "No, you're all just guys. Just fuck off." And this is a really clever statement on the loss of individuality. And the point that the film is trying to make really hard is that Meatloaf was better off before he joined the hyper-masculine cult that engages in reckless behavior, and that Bob was making legitimate connections with his focus groups when he was just talking about his testicular cancer openly and honestly in a group of peers.
Bob fears for his masculinity. His testicular cancer has reduced him to a blubbering mess who's been stripped of his masculine energy.
The narrator just can't really enjoy those focus groups because he's an actor. He doesn't have any real connection to those focus groups because he doesn't have any of the issues that they're about. And it always comes off as disingenuous, and he doesn't really get any satisfaction from it. It's a temporary solution that doesn't solve any of his deeper psychological problems. Moon breezes right past all that, listing 3 reasons as to why Fight Club is a warning for men and why men are so weak today. The first being comfort.
In the past, men acted like men. They faced discomfort and came together through unthinkable struggle.
Comfort, he argues, is too much. Men are too comfy today. So in essence, what he's arguing is that Tyler Durden's dilapidated crack shack on Paper Street is a more preferable place to live than the narrator's nice IKEA furnished apartment with like a fridge and shit and working plumbing, which I don't think is the point the film was trying to make. I think by design, Tyler's Crack Shack is designed not to be an appealing place to live by any stretch of the imagination. It's run down and it's shit, and the life that the narrator adopts is shit. Moon lists 2 other issues, and he brings up those horrible fucking Prince of Zimbabwe videos. I didn't even know those were still made. I thought they stopped being made after like 2016, but I guess those are still made. This really awful meme shit that has nothing to do with Fight Club. And then he shows like some scenes from 1984, which again is a terrible fucking movie and way worse than anything David Fincher would direct or Chuck Palahniuk would write. 1984 is way, way below their grade. And of course, he tosses in a couple scenes from a couple other random movies that have absolutely nothing to do with Fight Club, even remotely, because he doesn't understand how to edit properly.
When you are binded by the same values and virtues, you want to protect the society that you have.
So, when the video starts talking about Project Mayhem and the less savory aspects of Fight Club and how, it drives society insane and a whole ass city is bombed, like all these buildings just get destroyed and this masculinity cult just like goes fucking crazy. He points out that the reason this happens, the reason that Fight Club is actually a warning against weak men. You'd have to be really stupid to argue this because obviously Fight Club is a warning against strong men. It's about how Tyler Durden is bad and what he represents is bad and how like ruins the guy's life because he's wrapped up in this thing that's completely beyond his control and it ruins him and he has to shoot himself in the fucking face. It doesn't get much worse than that. Like he's obviously not having the best time of it. Moon reconciles this by saying that Fight Club is a warning because if men are weak, if men get too weak, then they will do Project Mayhem.
Men who have been repressed, who are addicted to comfort, who have no deeper connection, who no longer see the benefits of modern society. They come together to tear it down, because when men are weak, society falls.
And it'll go crazy, it'll go loco mode, and society will burn, because weak men want to be strong men, and they need an outlet for their testosterone and their aggressiveness. Grr, yeah, I need an outlet right now. Obviously, that's not what Fight Club is even remotely about. It's not about men being so repressed that they have to take vengeance against modern society. It's about a crazy guy. It's about one guy who's crazy. For all we know, his perception of reality itself is so distorted, maybe Marla's not real. Maybe the guys aren't real. Maybe Bob wasn't real. We don't know, because this narrator guy, again, is an unreliable narrator. We don't know that any of what he's been saying to us the whole time is true, because after it's revealed that he is Tyler, we don't know what the heck is going on anymore. Fight Club is about perception. It's about the way you perceive things. That's why you can watch it once, and then once the twist is revealed, you can go back and watch it again and suddenly realize, wow, Tyler was an imaginary character the whole time. But how do you know he was the only imaginary character? The narrator is such an interesting guy because you don't know that what any of he's told you is true. And it's so fucking weird and so outrageous, and it's such a mischievous mayhem movie that you don't know what the fuck is going on. Fight Club is such a subtextually deep movie that it messes with your brain on some really interesting levels. But obviously, it doesn't mess with Moon's brain because Moon's brain is too smooth to engage with any movie beyond the immediate surface text. And not even that, because even the immediate surface text of Fight Club will tell you that Tyler Durden, while he might appear cool at first, is gradually revealed to be kind of a dipshit and not the most pleasant guy.
On a massive scale, we have seen our values being subverted. We see relentless hedonism being praised and rewarded as empowering. We see the family unit being desecrated.
Another really funny bit is that Moon raises the point of connection. He talks about how men lack connection, and how the only way that they can actually get connection is to duke it out in the fucking basement in a big fight club, without realizing that while he's criticizing bars, he goes on this whole tirade about bars. He's like, oh, these fucking bars full of disgusting prostitutes and all these fucking droogs.
You see all these men piling up in sticky low-end clubs to bathe in the waters of the profane, destroying their body to the crescendos of recycle-thumping bass.
He's a particular fan of calling anyone he doesn't like a droog. I guess that's what they call them over in Britain instead of NPC. They adopt NADSAT. I like that. It's very refined and cultured and shows just what a staggering intellect Moon's got. He goes on this whole angry rant about bars and how there's too many fucking women there, and all guys want is to hook up. All guys want is that cheap fucking thrill, and they go to too many bars.
Scantily dressed paralytic women and salivating droog-like men. Right?
At the same time, I don't know if you noticed this, Moon, Fight Club takes place in the basement of a bar. It takes place in a bar. That's where Fight Club is. If you actually watch the movie, I don't know if Moon's paid much attention to Fight Club, because that's where Fight Club is. It's in a bar. It's not like the support groups that the narrator goes to in the first part of the movie. Fight Club is in a bar. It is kind of by definition an artificial meeting environment that lacks legitimate connection. It's not a place where guys can talk about their feelings and empty out onto each other. That's the honest, deep support group that Bob goes to. Fight Club is an artificial environment created by a crazy guy where these guys just ram into each other for an hour and a half. You might consider that a healthy outlet for men's aggression or whatever. You know, if guys have too much testosterone, they can box. They can go out and mess it up and tussle it out. But why do all guys have to do that? Fight Club is not about a real thing that should really happen. It's an action movie that's like deliberately crazy because it's a movie. It's a really good movie. The best movies, I think, do stretch the limits of truth and reality to kind of mess with your head and kind of like make you question what's going on. But Fight Club is not about what men should be doing. It's about one guy and his internal struggle and how it ruins him because he's just like, again, caught between two extremes. The one extreme is not enough testosterone, not enough adrenaline, no excitement, boring office job. The other extreme is Project Mayhem, and Project Mayhem is not presented as a favorable outcome. And at the end, he wants to go back to his cushy, nice IKEA furniture because that's nice, and it lacks the adrenaline and the mischief and the mayhem and the soap. But if you can agree that Fight Club is kind of just a nice, happy medium, then that's alright. But Fight Club is not promoting Project Mayhem. It's just not. That's not even remotely in the equation. And Tyler Durden is not a sympathetic character, and he doesn't mean anything except that this one guy is crazy, that this guy is a bastard. You don't like him at the end because he's done all this horrible shit. And it's not fun that he's poured lye on his hand. It's not fun that he's lived in this shithole for the past 100 months. It's not fun. He's not a cool guy. He's a dweeby little nerd, and he sucks, and he's ruined the lives of everyone around him through manipulation and brainwashing and the creation of this insane cult. He's created a nightmare world that he just has to live in and accept. That's what Fight Club is about. It's really not that deep. Anyway, I think it's troubling that Moon's videos are getting so big. He mentions blackpilling and incels in the video, but then is just like, I don't know anything about that, moving on.
We're now seeing big changes in society. There are movements called men going their own way. We see these men called black pillars on.
No commentary on the incel movement, no commentary on toxic masculinity, or chauvinism, Or maybe how the only reason you're not getting laid or starting a family is because you're just a guy who sucks and nobody wants to be around you, and you wear Tyler Durden clothes all the time and you constantly quote Tyler Durden, and you talk about how you're the middle children of history even though you're not Gen X, and that line only makes sense in the context of Gen X in 1999 and it's currently 2023. Like, keep in mind, people like Moon, or who we gave up YouTubers like Monkey Jones for. Say what you will about Monkey Jones, say he was edgy or provocative or whatever, but he was funny and he had a good production value in every single one of his videos. And this Moon guy, this British guy, can just come along and make way edgier, offensive, trash content without even a sliver of irony to it. How do we decry old school edgy YouTubers like Leafy or iDubbbz, and then we give the camera to provocateurs like Moon, and we're like, yeah, shitting on women is so cool. This is epic right here. Like, how does YouTube ban Monkey Jones for his Elliot Rodgers series, which is entirely satirical and not in any way meant to promote the ideology of Elliot Rodgers, but then they give the free big algorithm boost to Moon, who actually promotes a harmful incel ideology and makes videos like, was the Unabomber right about technology?
Unabomber is one of the most interesting people of the 21st century.
I don't know, maybe this Unabomber guy had some good ideas.
Ted was creating a revolutionary manifesto. He was using all of his intellect to warn society of the dangerous path that is awaiting us.
You don't know, maybe he was kind of based. No.
Ted was doing incredibly well at school, with one of his teachers saying that Ted was, quote, an honest, ethical, and sociable student.
Keep in mind, that's an actual Moon video. The title is actually that, and there's no irony or anything. Moon just hates technology and like websites so much that he's willing to make a video called, was the Unabomber right? Maybe. Like, I don't know, I just think it's troubling that Moon is getting so big in the YouTube search algorithm, that just like ridiculous toxic garbage like this, that just has all this footage from these shitty 4chan Prince of Zimbabwe type videos spliced in there, along with like just shots from Better Call Saul and Mr. Robot. This stuff just gets popular. It's content completely without substance, which ironically is exactly what Moon pretends to criticize. Like, oh, the algorithm is fucking with your brain, bro. It's making you a weak guy. It's making you weak. The algorithm is fucking with your head, and you're in the Matrix, man. You're in the fucking prison. You're in a mental prison the algorithms put you in.
The average man is overstimulated beyond belief, accustomed to scrolling on apps on autopilot, living vicariously through other people's stories.
Moon is the mental prison because his videos are all repetitive ass, and he has nothing of actual substance to say. He chooses really interesting topics like the abuse of social media platforms or fucking Fight Club. Fight Club is an extremely deep movie. There's a video by an actual film analyst named Rob Ager on the subject that's very good, and I'd recommend you go check it out because it talks about the contradictions between Tyler Durden's stated anti-consumerism and the blatant consumerism in the film itself, which is very interesting.
Tyler is, in many ways, a corporate product.
You should go watch that. Rob Ager's an actual content creator who gives a shit about creating high-quality content. YouTube isn't all just Moons. At the same time, I just don't know. Like, it's really troubling that Moon is getting so big, and I don't understand why nobody's talked about Moon to the same extent they've talked about Andrew Tate or Sneeko, because Moon legitimately makes some of the worst fucking videos on this entire website. Like, they are literal trash. They are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to video essay content or deep analysis of any societal issue, because Moon always falls back on the exact same points again and again and again.
Over and over and over and over and over and over.
And just blames everything, not even on women, just on like society, I guess. We live in a society or something along those lines. It's delusional. It's delusional content for really delusional people who just don't give a shit about thinking and just want to sink deeper into this algorithmic hell of junk food. So yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say about this terrible fucking Fight Club video. It's hands down one of the worst film analysis on YouTube. It just completely misses the point of the movie it's talking about.
Durden is introduced, a man who's the opposite of the narrator in every way. A man's man, with a big leather jacket, shades, and unlimited confidence.
It'd be like if you watched Star Wars and you came out of it like pro-Darth Vader, like you'd have to be really dense to arrive at the conclusion that Tyler Durden is supposed to be the good guy or like an aspirational character. You'd have to be really stupid. Like, between Tyler Durden, the Joker, and Travis Bickle, I guess Travis Bickle's the most sympathetic. Tyler Durden's an asshole. No one wants to be Tyler Durden. I mean, fuck. Tyler Durden pours lye on people's hands. Who the fuck wants to be Tyler Durden? He's fucking stupid. So anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd pick apart this little moon video, because it really is just, like, concentrated tripe, and I don't get it. And I don't get why people watch this.
Men around you are docile, lethargic, and apathetic. You accept being weak. You lower your standards for yourself and those around you. And this really is how civilizations collapse.
I don't get the times we're living in, man. I don't get it. I hope Moon doesn't start up his own Project Mayhem because he thinks that's the most sane and common sense way to solve current gender politics. But if he does, he's going to find out quickly that life ain't a movie and this ain't Fight Club. Uh-oh, I said Fight Club. Everyone knows the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about... never mind.